everyone, and welcome back to the Kingdom Conversations podcast. Today we have Pastor Shannon with us, which is this your first time on the podcast, right?
It is.
Welcome. We're almost at the end of season 1, and today we're going to be talking about community and why community matters. Obviously, community doesn't come natural to, some people it does, but even if it does come natural, it still takes work, right?
True, yes.
And so if we're going to put investment into this with our time, with our energy, our efforts, we want to know why it matters and why it's important and how to do it in the healthiest way, right? And so we're really going to be diving into that this week. And I think it's perfect timing because last Sunday we heard a message at the Frederickson campus. It was from you about community and how that was expressed through David and Jonathan.
Yeah.
But there's so many examples of that throughout Scripture, and obviously we see that in our own lives and in the lives of everyone around us, right? That's a big part of the human expression here on earth. And so let's just really unpack why it matters first and foremost. If we're going to even have a conversation about community, why does community matter to us?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I think we see pretty clearly in God's word that he wired us for community. He, like right away in Genesis, makes that statement, and we read it as being really addressed to Adam specifically as the first one created, but God says it's not good for man to be alone.
Yeah.
And if you play that out through the generations, through the centuries, it's just part of our human design that God created us for community. He didn't create us to be alone. And so that's the biggest reason I think it matters, is because it's like when you have a tool that's created to be used for a certain purpose and you try to use it for something else, it usually doesn't go well.
Right.
God created us in a specific way, and when we try and veer off from that usually doesn't go well for us, and often doesn't go well for the people around us. So
absolutely,
it's more of a purpose thing that we're fulfilling.
Yeah. And it's really part of our being made in the image of God, right? I think we talked about that even in the very first episode when we talked about the core value of family that we hold dearly here at Sound Life. And we're created in the image of God, and God in his triune nature is in community from the beginning of time, right? From outside of time. Yep. And so that is the image that we're created in, and that's the design that God has for us.
Yeah.
And so that's really why we invest in it, right? Because it's for our best interest that God doesn't create anything that's not going to help us be better and flourish, right? And so trusting in that, because he designed it and he designed us, and so we're going to invest in what's best for us, and like you said, everyone around us too, right? Because our buy-in to this doesn't just affect us, right? Like,
not at all. Yeah,
we're gonna make it better for the people around us, or if we don't do it right or intentionally, then it could potentially be worse for the people around us too. So it's for the best interest of all of us. So kind of along those lines, we've been talking about how we could make it better or worse for the people around us, and so we're going to spend most of our time obviously talking about the positive side of this, but before we do, I think it's important to also understand the dangers of not investing in community. And so maybe the opposite effect, if we're choosing whether it be isolation or just not investing in community, what are kind of the opposite effects of community?
Well, I just feel like whenever we allow ourselves to live in isolation, or to just even live on those really surface levels of community, where it's not that we don't have any friends, but we don't really have anybody in a close enough proximity to us to really affect life for us. Like what's truly important to us, how do we truly decide to live life? Those spaces of isolation and really aloneness, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a room full of people but felt very alone. Like, a lot of people live that way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good. It's not healthy. I feel like even if one of the verses or passages I used in the message on Sunday was from Ecclesiastes, I think chapter 4, where it just talks about, like, hey, if a person's alone, they're easy to attack and they're easy to defeat.
Right.
But if two people together, they can stand back to back and they can, overcome and conquer.
Yeah.
Or there was an example in the same passage used, like, hey, if there's two people together and you're in a place where it's cold, like you keep each other warm,
right,
which is kind of a funny, picture to use. But there were several things laid out in that passage that said like, hey, this is the value.
Right.
And if you don't have this in your life, if you're isolated and alone, like, you're easy to pick off by the enemy. We're susceptible to the lies of the enemy.
Totally.
When we don't have anybody else speaking truth and pointing us back to the things we know are true about God, or true about ourselves, or true about the calling that's on our lives. Like, if that's the only voice we're hearing is the voice of the enemy because we don't have any other community to like, whoa, wait a second, that's not true.
Right.
We can fall prey to the lies of the enemy, and it's just never a good thing.
Right. Yeah, I can think of, seasons of my life where I've either had that really good, strong community, or other times where I didn't have that. And a lot of times in those harder seasons, it was not for a lack of people around me that were willing to be that community, and maybe even were trying to be that community for me, but I wasn't leaning into it, right? And I can think of that season in particular where I wasn't leaning into the community around me, and all the areas of my life suffered, right? That was probably the worst, within my adult life. That was the time that I made the worst decisions personally. That was the time when the enemy attacked me from all angles, right? And a lot of times I didn't even recognize it.
Yeah.
But if I were to have those people around me, that accountability, right? Even like my financial stability, that struggled in that season because I was not, standing in accountability and community in those ways. So it's not even areas of our lives that you would naturally, like, my finances I don't associate with anybody but myself, right? Like, it's my finances and really, God's. But when we're in that healthy place of community, I think everything else in our life flourishes, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's often a sign of spiritual health too, right? Like,
totally.
our community and what that looks like on the outside really shows what our community with God is looking like in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I just feel like trying to do life on your own, I don't know, I think we convince ourselves that, I'm free, like I can do my own thing, I can do whatever I want, and we like try and talk it up like it's a freedom good thing, but living life in isolation or without community is really wearing. In all the really practical parts of life, the spiritual parts of life, like all of it, like none of us know everything. So when it comes to like the financial piece that you brought up, sometimes there's a problem that I encounter, or I have a decision to make that's a big decision regarding my finances. I don't know everything about finances, and so sometimes just having somebody in my life that has more experience than me, they've lived longer than me, they've encountered different things in life than I have, for me to be able to go to them and be vulnerable with them enough to say like, hey, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what do you think? Like, would you pray with me about this?
Yeah.
Would you lend me the experience that you have, the things that you've learned? Like, it lifts a little bit of that weight off of you to feel like you have to figure it out all on your own.
Right.
Just like any job, cleaning the house. Like, if you're the only one cleaning the house, you're like, it's going to take forever. But if somebody else pitches in and helps, now the two of you are doing it together in community, it's like, oh, okay, we can do this.
Yeah, and it's way more fun.
Yeah.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot, like, we know what this looks like, but we also have this bent in us, like our human nature, I think, wants to have, I think especially in the Western church culture, like we have this thing of being independent and freedom and wanting to do it our own way that can really rob us and do damage because we buy into it.
Totally. Yeah, I think those are the two key oppositions to community is either isolation or independence, right? And we all, I think, have parts of us in our broken nature, right? Because God created us in our perfect nature to want and desire and flourish in community, but our broken nature wants isolation and independence, right? And it might be because of insecurity. It might be because of pride. There's so many, I think, root issues. And so I think in talking about all of the reasons why we might not go into those places of community. I think really getting to the root cause, and it's going to be different for everyone. Maybe you've been hurt in the past, or maybe it just has been a struggle for you because making friends is not easy and finding those people to be in community with isn't easy. Maybe it's something in you that doesn't like vulnerability or accountability, right? Like maybe you don't want that in your life. You hold people at arm's length because you're afraid of getting hurt or afraid of showing who you really are to people who love you. So I think really getting honest with ourselves of why is this hard for me? Why is this something that I don't appreciate for what it really is and what goodness it could bring in my life and who I am? So I think that's kind of the step that we all should be searching, even for those of us who are naturally more good at community or are in a place where, you know, we would say that we're good in community. Well, we can always be better, right? We can always search to grow in the depth of our relationships and those that we're in relationship with. So what does the design of community accomplish in us? And when we're kind of talking about how community can be a good thing, what does it do in us that makes it a good thing?
I think what I was mentioning a little bit earlier about having somebody to come alongside us and help us, it lifts some of the weight of life. It brings more joy. And you said it makes it more fun. You know, in the cleaning the house thing. So I think there are a lot of healthy things that community brings to us that we miss out on otherwise. So it brings health to us. It makes just living life like more sustainable because we're not worn out. Doesn't mean things aren't hard, but whenever we go through hard things, like going through them alone is all the worse. It brings a certain level of protection. You know, that Ecclesiastes verse talks about that. Like there's a level of protection physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, that comes with being in a healthy, close community with other people that are also pursuing Jesus alongside of you, that are pointing you back to Him. Sometimes you just need somebody in your life to remind you of the goodness of God and to help you have godly biblical perspective on what's really going on, because I can convince myself that the sky is falling and everything's broken and there's never a way out of this and it's all doom and gloom. And I know that that's not true. Yes. But in our weakest moments, in our darkest moments, we can buy into that. We spiral in that way. And just to have somebody else come along and just go like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you know, God is good and He's for you. He's not against you. You can trust Him. Like it does that for us. Like it accomplishes that in us. It builds our faith. Community builds our faith. It builds our trust in God. And it helps us day to day just live life. For sure. And one of the verses you shared on Sunday was about that iron sharpens iron, right? Like I think it provides a space for us to be strengthened and to be sharpened, right? To get rid of the things that God's trying to kind of sand away out of our lives. And it really does shape us. And a lot of times that's just by creating a safe space to have those conversations and to be honest and kind with one another about, you know, when you allow your true self to be seen by other godly people, they're able to, you know, call out the good things and the bad things and, you know, shape us through the Holy Spirit really is what is allowing that to happen. I even just think of a conversation I was having with some friends last night, and we were just sitting together and talking about some of our struggles, and one person had advice for the other person's current struggle, and then later on in the conversation, that person that gave the advice was sharing, and they were like, oh, I guess I should listen to the advice that I just gave you. Like, it was so applicable. And to that truth, she understood that truth and was giving it to somebody else's situation. And that conversation helped her in her own struggle as well. And so I think that happens as we just do life together, right? Because so often when we're just wrestling with it internally, when it's kind of like in the hidden dark of like our mind or our hearts, it doesn't grow, right? But when we allow it to come out,
in healthy community that creates kind of the greenhouse per se for things to really flourish and come out into the light.
Yeah, and I also had a great conversation with a young man this last week that reminded me of one of the other values that community brings, and I feel like the community we're trying to talk about and trying to address is that community that has depth to it, where it's the people that you allow to get close to you and to really know who you are, and they're aware of the faults and they're aware of the strengths and they're aware of all the things, and they're also somebody who's pursuing Jesus alongside of you. Like they're in step with you regarding that. Like, hey, we're going to do this together, but we're going towards Jesus in the process. And so this young man that I was having this conversation with was choosing to be vulnerable in that moment. And it was really like a moment of confession. Taking something that he had been carrying on his own in isolation with nobody else aware of it because he hadn't disclosed it to anybody. He's like, hey, I need you to know. Right. And he confessed that, which is a very biblical thing. And it allowed him to like, you know, like not have to carry that anymore. Like now I've like let it out. Somebody else knows and they love me and I can trust them with this even though it was hard to do, and they're not going to shame me for it. They're not going to like make me feel guilty for it. They're going to hold me accountable. Right. They're going to say like, okay, well that's you did the right thing and now we're going to do better. We're not going to keep going in this direction. Right. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to ask you how you're doing. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to encourage you. Like it was a pivotal moment for him that the only thing that was the solution to that was community. And so he's healthier for it now. Like his spirit is healthier for it now. It's just a good thing. And we don't get that in other spaces. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now that we've kind of established why community is important and why we want to invest in good, healthy community, obviously, I mean, the enemy wants us to be isolated and to be on our own in a lot of ways. And so there's, I think, some really real roadblocks to community. Some of them are really real. Some of them are just plain excuses, right? But they're roadblocks for us to get into this healthy community. And so what are some of those things? Maybe we can unpack some of the things that might be roadblocks to stop us from getting into healthy community. I feel like one that's like really real in the American Christian's life is we pack our lives too full of other things. Like we schedule this out of our lives instead of into our lives. Totally. We just fill our lives up with work and maybe hobbies or the things that we enroll our kids in, or like we just pack life. And so full. And it's just so full. Like now I don't have room for it. And so we schedule it out of our lives. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. We convince ourselves we don't need it. Like it's, like I'm doing fine. Right. And usually we're doing fine until we're not. Yeah. And then it's when we need community the most that we don't have it. And as pastors, like I feel like we run into that a lot, where people experience a tragedy or a loss, and they're coming to us sometimes because they don't know who else to go to because they don't have any other community. Yeah. And they're kind of grasping for something. Yeah. And they don't even really have community with us, but it feels like we're their best shot. Right. And it's just, you can see the emptiness of community that's missing in their life. Absolutely. So I don't know, and ourselves, we get in the way ourselves with that whole thing that I think you brought up a minute ago. Like maybe we've been hurt in the past, and so we put up the roadblock. We're like, I'm not going to let myself be hurt again, or I don't know. I guess that's the best way to say it. That we are afraid of somebody knowing, our flaws or our mistakes, or it's hurt. from the past. So we put ourselves in the way. I don't know. Those are the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it happens, you know, in our own minds, right? Whether it's a lie from the enemy of I don't need community, or community is not good, not a safe place for me to be in, or community doesn't work for me, right? I feel like that's a common lie. Like, well, I've tried that and it doesn't work for me. Like, I'm the exception, right? None of us are the exception to this rule. We all need it, and it's created for us. And when we really give it our best shot, I think obviously we're gonna get hurt, right? Like, we're with people that are humans, and we're humans, and we're all broken, right? And so we're gonna mess up. But when we handle those moments appropriately, I think we can actually be blessed by them, even more so than we fear being hurt by them, right? And so I think just really getting past those negative thoughts, or maybe negative attitudes, or distractions in our own minds and in our own, you know, hearts, but then the practical roadblocks of, like you said, the scheduling and I think even sometimes we miss out on depth of community because we have too much width to our community, right? Like, obviously there's value in coming together in, like, a church on Sunday morning, right? Like, we're in a big group of people on a Sunday morning, and that's there's beauty to that, and that's glorifying to God and encouraging to us, you know, coming together and seeing everyone worship together. But if that's all I made time for was big groups where I'm kind of hidden in the mix and I'm not really getting to know or being known by those people, right? We have to have moments built into our schedule where we have those people that really know us well. Right? And I remember growing up, always hearing that, like, it's better to have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, right? And so there's a time and a place for the 100 pennies, right? But if out of that place you don't meet those quarters and have those people that are really rich relationships, really deep relationships, that you're doing life together often, and you're not in a hurry to get to the next thing and get to the next person that you're going to have a really shallow relationship with, right? We have to have moments where we stop and really invest our time and our energy into really deep relationship, and don't settle for the shallow conversations where you're just catching up with them here and there, right? And it's like, oh, how are your kids? And oh yeah, how's work going, right? Like, there's value in that, but it has to go beyond that. We can't be sustained off of that.
No, I mean, so we're creatures of habit, right? So if I put myself in my mind right now in church on Sunday morning, and usually kind of the same people sit around me, you know, I greet them during the community time, say, hey, it's great to see you today. You know, there might be a little bit more than that, but none of those people are the people that I'm going to confess to when I've blown it. Right. Like, I don't have that level of relationship with them. Right. So the level of trust hasn't been, they're not going to do it with me either. Yeah. If I get some terrible diagnosis, you know, from the doctor that week, I'm not going to take that to them and, you know, like, wow, like, this is going on in my life. I could really, like, they don't have that level of relationship to me to take that on. But if I have that person in my life that I've let get close in relationship, and they're in community with me, and they know all the good, all the bad, all the ugly, and I do too, that when that diagnosis comes, I can, like, wow, you know, and they're going to bear that burden with me. Or if I need accountability, like, they have the depth of relationship, they speak that into my life. Like, so if, like, we have the 100, you know, all around us, like, we might know their names, and we're like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. But that doesn't help when life really gets real. Right. So that's why we need, like, this is great, but we need this too. Yeah, for sure. And there's a time and a place for both, right? And a lot of times that 100 might be a great place to find the core people in your life, right? So just having that as, you know, even I think it's a pressure in society, right? Like, how many people do you know, and how popular are you, and all how
those
many followers do you have on social media?
Exactly. Like, we're such numbers based in our success, right? But really, I think, breaking out of that mindset of just trying to have more in the quantity of friends or relationships or community or places you go to meet people or whatever it might be. Not that those things are completely wrong, but I mean, we should be careful where we go for the people we meet. But
Totally.
It's really, we have to prioritize the depth of our relationships for sure. And I'd rather spend all my time investing in those deep relationships than just like fraction it up into a bunch of smaller, shallow relationships that, like you said, when push comes to shove, they're not really the people that I'm going to feel really isolated and alone when the time comes that I really need that community. So I think, I mean, we acknowledge that they're real, but also they're still not excuses, right? Like we have to acknowledge them and find the solutions to get over those roadblocks and to manage those things and to identify them in our own ways of thinking, our own attitudes, the schedule. Like maybe that's the next step for some of us, like this week, is just how does my schedule cater to these kind of relationships I want to have?
Yeah.
So, and that kind of leads into, as we wrap up today, just really launching ourselves. Like what are the opposite things of the roadblocks? What are these launching points? And maybe it's things that don't exist yet in our lives, but we could set up in our life to launch us into community. What are some of those things that we can set up in our lives?
Some first things that come to mind is just that practice of Sabbath that we talk about. Even if that's just the foundation for some of this community to come out of, because if we're so packed, if we're so scheduled, overscheduled, that we can't take that moment to pause and just have time with us and Jesus. Like if we can't do that, then we're definitely not going to have the time to build relationships on a human level with other people. And just to be able to step back in a Sabbath moment or a day of Sabbath and ask the Lord, to help us, who are the people, that you've already put in my life that are, maybe in a circle that's out here, but they would be a good, healthy person to have in this circle here that I could that's a relationship I should pursue. I should initiate spiritual conversations with that person. I should invite them into life more. So that Sabbath thing, I think, is a foundational part. And then purposely putting ourselves in places where there's potential for community. One of my pastors used to always tell us, we need to give God something to work with. Like we have a responsibility to do our part. And if we're like, oh Lord, I need community, Lord, I need friends, I need people to bring accountability, but we never spend time with people. Like that's not giving the Lord anything to work with. And so like maybe it's like next time, there's an opportunity given to get in a growth group, like that we take that step. We like, okay, I'm gonna put myself with other people that are also pursuing Jesus, that are coming together purposely to build relationship with each other, to get connected better, to have spiritual conversations with one another, to pursue Jesus together. Like that's a simple way that is familiar to all of us as part of the Sound Life family. That would be a natural next step towards community. And the schedule thing, like I think that's real. Like the hard part is there's a sacrifice to this. Like there's a cost to it. Like the depth of relationship, the depth of community we're talking about, there's a price to pay for it. And I think deciding whether we're willing to pay that price or not, like we need to have that honest conversation with ourselves. Like, is my life living void of community? Like, is that worth all these, fun things that I have filling my schedule? Or would I be way better off to sacrifice one or two of those things in order to have the health that community would bring? And so I have some difficult decisions to make. Like those, I'm not saying that's easy, but
worth it.
It's worth it, right? We just have to like make that hard decision.
Make the decision and then follow through with it, right? Like we can in the heat of the moment be like, I need this, I'm gonna do it, and then it's like, okay, well actually canceling that or taking that, out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part, right? But we have to be committed to it and trust that God is going to honor that
Mm-hmm.
in your life and
Mm-hmm.
provide, and we have to just continue to work the process, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you go to a group, it's not guaranteed that that's going to be like the best fit for you.
Right.
Then try another group, right? Or go to
Yeah.
a barbecue group over the summer or whatever it is. We just have to keep showing up, right?
Yeah.
And keep being the friend that we want to have in our lives, right? And show up for the things and really put our best effort into it, right? Not just show up and then be mad that nobody came and approached us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want it, you have to go and put yourself out there and
Mm-hmm.
send the text message or invite the people over for dinner
Mm-hmm.
or invite them. It doesn't even have to be something that costs money, right? Like
Not at
go
all.
walk, at the park or the lake or whatever it might be. Like just
Mm-hmm.
finding those ways and creating that space in your schedule,
Yeah.
I think is huge. So it's spiritual, it's practical, and it's everything in between. But I think we all will benefit from growth in that direction. So
Yeah, it's how God's designed us.
yep, yeah, and it's worth it. All the easy and the hard parts of it are worthwhile for sure. So let's not just talk about the kingdom here. Let's go out and be the kingdom together, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. So let us know how we can help, and let's go and love each other well and love the world around us well. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week for the last episode of Season 1.
Welcome, Sound Life Church. Hey, I'm Pastor Sean, and I'm here with the parenting tip of the week. And this is a fun one. Play is how kids learn. And I love to go to secular sites to see what they think of things. And so I'm going to read a quote to you from childcare.gov. So, this is a government agency, and this is what it says. Play is serious business for your child. It helps their brains and bodies develop and provides a fun way for children to learn about themselves and the world around them. Play also helps children learn how to communicate and cooperate with others. Through play, children build skills needed to be successful in school, work, the community, and relationships. I don't know. This one, I think the government agency kind of hit the mark there. I thought that was super good as I researched, how I could express the importance of play. And the thing that I would love to encourage you as a parent, if your kids can learn and they don't really realize that they're learning, if you could create situations where you're teaching them, training them, but they don't feel taught or trained, many times that comes through play. And so you can do a ton of things that create opportunities to play. Kids love pretend, and they love to do things with adults. So don't hesitate to be engaged in childlike activities, because it will mean a lot to them. And then when tough decisions and tough conversations need to be had, their emotional bank account will be full because they're full of play. Their play meter is full, and it helps them in those teachable moments. And then here's the thing that I find fascinating. This happens spiritually as well. The government model did not talk about the fact that play it impacts your spiritual life. And you might be thinking, Sean, what on earth are you talking about? Play is going to affect how we live spiritually. I want you to know that I have baptized many people as a child before I ever had a chance to do that as a pastor. I practiced that in the pool. I preached many sermons. We had revival meetings. I did my own VBSs in my backyard with my buddies. And I think about that, and you might think, wow, your childhood, that doesn't sound very exciting. But to me, it was the greatest thing ever, as just we played and investigated, and as we learned to do things, I would imitate my parents in times of play in my home. And I think that was a great endorsement of my mom and dad, and it helped them understand what I was processing. So as I played by myself and with them, doing crazy, zany things, and how many know that you can also, on a walk, see God's creation, and you can discuss. And then many times, side by side, walking side by side is a great time talk and to have that. And so that side-by-side situations happen in play, and you have opportunity to speak life into your kid without it feeling like a lecture. And so here's the last thing that I'll tell you. I had a young man in my kids' church, and he came to church and had cut off all of his beautiful hair. He had beautiful blonde hair. I was a little bit jealous of his hair, but he cut it off, and I asked his mom, I go, what happened? And she goes, well, he wanted to look like you. And so he cut his hair off. And so I thought about that, and I thought that might be one of the kindest things that anyone ever expressed. And she goes, yeah, he cut his hair off, and he pretends to be Pastor Sean, and he does object lessons in the backyard all the time. And I thought, wow, so play is impacting this young man's life as he develops and learns who God is calling him to be. And his hair grew back, so.